Coach Dan Quinn, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's good to be on with you, Dan, and I've been looking forward to spending some time today, and I got some cool topics to hit on.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to you. I know how busy you are. I just want to communicate from the jump here that you're a big name in my house. We are diehard Commanders fans.
Right on.
We will be traveling to Madrid to see you guys play this year.
Love it.
We are hardcore fans. So and just so admire what you pulled off last season.
That's cool, man. It's fun to talk about going to Spain. There are a lot of people that I've spoken to, including some of my own family members, like, yeah, I'm going. So I think we'll have a pretty strong crew there at the game. It's certainly feeling that way.
We'll be making some noise from the stands for you. No question about it. Let me dive right in because I'm not only a fan of your work in athletics. I'm really so impressed by the personal work you've done, and that is, of course, the major focus of my career and this show. And I, if you're comfortable with that, I'd like to ask you about the fact that you got a 360 review. I'd be curious to hear, like, why did you decide to do that, and what did you learn?
As a coach, kind of coming up, you don't get a lot of it'd be interesting, like for people in the business world, like there's not evaluations, that you get coming up. So for all the time, you just kind of keep coaching and keep going, but you're not getting evaluated and getting feedback on a regular. Oftentimes, a mentor or another person that you're close with would give feedback. So I was fortunate in Atlanta to be around Arthur Blank. And so that was the first time I'd ever heard what a 360 was. And so he kind of explained how he used that as part of Home Depot, and where, direct reports would give information. And so it was in my brain that I knew a little bit about it. So when I had got let go in Atlanta, I kind of said I'd like to create my own 360 that was customed, really to me. The cross-reference of people would be, players that I worked with that it's going great, players that maybe I released, coaches that I was currently working with, maybe some that I hadn't, some front office people, and everything in between. So if we could find mainly like a cross-reference of people, I wanted to find out, some feedback and, what were some things, any blind spots that I could find. And so I was fortunate that Laura Oakman, who at the time was working with Fox, I said, these are the names of all the people. I gave her maybe 50 of them. I said, I'm not interested in any feedback of who it was. I just want to know what their feedback was. And then once we get done, then maybe we can find some things that, okay, on another lap as a head coach, think about doing this differently. So that's where it began. I think the hard part of getting let go as a coach during the season, like it's lonely, it's time away. I've been on a team my entire life, at 3 sports, all the way through probably over 70 teams in my life. So it was the first time I wasn't, part of a team. But it also, maybe the silver lining was like, it created space to say, would have I done this had I not gotten fired? And I think that's, the thing I want to share to people is say, it's worth it, man. Do it when it's going good, doing when it's not, but having that feedback helps. And so I can remember watching it with Laura, because she also put in all the good things, and we did the Zoom together. And I just went right past any of those. She said, whoa, what are you doing? Those are like the good things. I was like, well, I don't want to read that, She's like, no, I want you to read everything. So I went down to the bottom. I said, all right, let's begin. I really appreciated it. And so that winter, I got hired by the Cowboys. And so it's one thing to, have the 360 and have the information. And then you want to, okay, what's the lesson and how am I going to apply it? And so there were definitely things that I got to Dallas. Okay, how can I apply some things differently here? So I got the information. Now I want to be able to use it. So a custom 360, it was interesting because I wanted to find out what blind spots I had and how I could do some things differently. And so that's how it began.
I have enormous, not only respect, but also empathy for the situation because I've had 2 360s myself. And the first one, a daisy cutter bomb to my psyche. And I learned a lot of shit that I did not want to learn. And so I'm curious, what did you learn? And did you feel defensive? Were you surprised? Like, how did that go for you?
Yeah. Arthur Blanky had told me a funny story because he had did one, and I think he said to the person, no, this isn't me. Like, I think you sent me the wrong one. You sounded like you had the same experience. I'd had a good working relationship. So the ones that I wanted to see were really, I wanted to find some of the issues that I could solve, Dan. So one of them would have been taking on too much. I like to solve problems like a lot of us do. Well, I can help you with that, and I can help with that, and I can help with that. And all of a sudden, like, I'm finding myself like spreading myself too thin. And like, hey man, the main thing is like all the players, all the coaches, like, what do we need to do to help them be at their best? And so it was this good lesson. That was one of the biggest takeaways for me, is like, you think you're helping by, helping this person, but you're not. Like, you're actually taking less time away from the main thing. When I felt myself go to Dallas, if I ever felt myself do that, no, hey man, remember, assign this. If you want, feedback, let me know. I'll review it with you then. So it forced me to put it into practice. It's one thing to get the report, but then the next step is like, all right, how do you make it come to life and find these improvements? And so I still find myself making sure I stay connected to that. I kind of kept a copy of it in my desk to make sure, I didn't lose sight of those things. And like I said, I had no interest in trying to figure out, well, I know who said that, or I didn't want, like, that didn't have anything to do with it. I did appreciate some people calling and friends. Hey, somebody's calling me about this. Is that cool? Is that real? I said, yeah, it's real. I want the feedback, because I did want the information. I definitely did.
One of the other pieces of feedback I think you got was to be more present.
Yep.
What was that a reference to, that you were too scattered?
I think so. I think it came back to like the taking on too much of where we're at. I know I am at my best when I can really like dig into, the person and the thing that we're working on together. And so I felt like a little bit when it spread too thin, it just allows you to be less present. And so I created some time. Okay, hey, for the next 30 minutes of this schedule, like nothing. I'm not adding more onto a plate or pouring more into the cup that's already full. So I had to create time and spots in my schedule to be more present with people. And so once I started staying consistent with that, the relationships that I built with players and coaches, like that's what I love about coaching the most. So why would I overschedule myself of everything else and take away from that? Like that would be my superpower. And so of having those, giving feedback and coaching and teaching. So doing less of that makes no sense. So I want to make sure like find the space and the time to do just that.
This idea of giving and receiving feedback, it seems like you have really knit this into the culture at the Commanders. And just for the uninitiated here, Coach Quinn went from Atlanta, and then he referenced spending some time in Dallas, and then was brought on last season as the head coach at the Commanders with the new ownership and the new general manager, Adam Peters. And it was supposed to be like just a turnaround year. But actually ended up becoming like an incredible year where they made it quite far into the playoffs. You and Adam have spent a lot of time, my understanding is, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, really trying to remake the culture on a team that was, mired in some problematic stuff. And
Yep.
One of the initiatives you've launched is Tell the Truth Mondays. Could you describe that?
Yeah. And even before we get into that, you had referenced, with Adam and starting somewhere together, there's a collaboration that goes with that. And I think the best of the best can do that, where you can lean in on parts of the relationships that are like benefit both of you. And you can do some things together that you wouldn't have been able to do if it was just yourself. And so I really like collaborating with him and talking about ideas. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just vent to talk about something, even if there's not the right answer. So I think what I've learned through the NFL and with coaches too about feedback, you have to give it. It doesn't mean you have to, treat somebody like an asshole or say it in a tough way that's demeaning, but you do have to give it. You also have to be able to receive it. And if you're somebody that's always kind of right fighting, no, what I meant was, or what it was this, I mean, just listen to it. And then here's the message. Here's what I'm trying to say. And that's what I've learned through the years, that you do have to give the feedback. And we created a standard here about, what a commander is and accountability. And if you don't have a standard and don't give that feedback, then like you really don't have a standard. So we do call it Tell the Truth Monday. It's a day after a game. And did we do what we said we were going to do? As a coach and as a team, this was the plan. This is what we said. We have to show film, because if you don't do that, or if you don't show a negative of a star player and you only show one that's, somebody that's, barely playing, that's not authentic too. And the same standards apply to everybody. The roles may be different, but the standards apply. So I think if you really want a strong crew, then you shouldn't make different standards, for different people.
How do you, and I think this is a pain point for many of us, either at work or at home, how do you deliver feedback? And you described this a little bit, but I'd be interested to hear you unpack it a little bit further. How do you deliver feedback, especially when it's going to be critical, without being an asshole?
First thing you want to make sure is that you're coming into this feedback and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is the evidence of that to go, because you do have to give it. And then I think at the end, a lot of times I'll ask the person, hey, let's repeat back what we said. Let's talk about this. So it's not just what I said. You heard it differently. I would much prefer that you get, okay, so let me read this back to you. You'd like to see more of X, Y, and Z. Yeah, that's right. Or you may have said to me, hey, Dan, I'd like to see more of X, Y, and Z. No. Just X, not Y and Z. Y and Z, you're doing good. Just X. So I think getting the response after giving the feedback is important, because now it makes sure you guys are like aligned on the same page. This is what I said. You've heard it. You repeated it back to me. So that's one way that we give the feedback to one another. And then honestly, if it's something that keeps repeating, then I think you address that as well and say, hey, we hit this on Monday. Here we are the next Monday and the same thing happens. Can we talk through this again? Or what steps do we need? What do you need help with to identify that this doesn't happen again?
Just to build on what you just said, and this is me going off of the research I did going into this interview with you. I would imagine a crucial aspect of being able to deliver tough feedback and have it be heard and acted on is to have a foundation of a good relationship with the player and with the coach. And I've read that you've said, like, if you have a superficial relationship, then it's going to be superficial coaching.
Yes.
So maybe say a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, all of us, myself included, sometimes how you think you have to give the feedback in your head, it's like going to be so much more difficult than it is.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't want to say this, or I don't want to bring this up. What's the old saying? Like, good news or bad news doesn't get better, with time. So like in your own head, you're like, I don't know if I should say this or not, or should I show that bad play of that player? I don't want him to be upset. Like, no, like this is the standard and this is what we said. So like, they shouldn't be upset. We're not coming at them from a point of view or we're attacking them, but we are pointing out the truth. And I think that's an important piece to it. But if you have a relationship with the person before the ball player or before the employee, that makes all the difference. And so finding out what somebody's why is, who they are, why they're playing, why they're competing, why they're doing what they are, it helps you connect better. I also ask for feedback on myself. And sometimes as leaders, we get less of it. And so we often give feedback to the people that report to us, or, in my instance, the coaches, the players, but I also want it in return. And so how do you frame that to say, give me an example of something that could have been done better today? What's something that went well? What's something that could have been done better, whether it be at a meeting, at practice? And that way they're not saying I'm correcting the coach. It's just like, make it in general, like what's one thing in this meeting that could have gone better? Make people feel comfortable about giving feedback. And if the small groups that you work with start collaborating more, then the feedback just becomes like, part of how you're talking. And it's not like, hey man, worry about yourself, or, I'll take care of that. Then you're not very close. And so I've been on teams that way too. Hey man, worry about what you do. And then they're like, man, you got no shot. So finding ways to collaborate and give each other feedback is good. Feedback you also have to give when it's good too. Hey man, that was an excellent demonstration of X, Y, or Z. So to me, standards, you have to point out when they're really good, but when they're not as good either, but you have to do both. Many times you can just, I don't like that. Da-da-da. Then you go on to the next thing. I don't like that, and tell the person without ever being the person that says, this is exceptional work and this is why it's exceptional. Yeah. So I try to find the balance of both. Some people need more than less, but you have to know that too.
A few moments ago, you referenced in the context of getting to know your players and your staff, knowing what somebody's why is. What is your why, and why is having a why important?
Yeah. Having a why is important because you'll know who the heroes of somebody's story is. So why is this so important of what you're doing, where we're at? So knowing their background, what they stand for, what they've overcome, that helps because now you know what they are fighting for. My why, I love coaching and competing and playing against the best teams in the world in football. And so those times in the game, where it's at the highest points, that's when I feel most alive. And knowing that I love doing that part, the competition, the games, all of it, knowing full well you could get your heart broke, if it doesn't go your way. But the joy of coaching and being in that environment, it's the best. So that's the why. And can live with almost any result as long as all the work that I put in, all the preparation was there. I can almost live with any result as long as preparation, the practice, the mindset, all the things that went into the game, we did and we nailed it. Then I love that one because you lost it. I can come back from that, but it was the joy of being in that spot. That's the why. And I love doing those kind of things with the group and being in tight games with people because the fight, that's the funnest part of it. So that's the why, and that's why I love it in the NFL. We get to play for and coach for and against the best teams in the world in football. And so the competition's high. People are really skilled, but it's fun as hell too.
And it's fun to watch. You specifically and your team, it has been, I almost had a heart attack about 75 times last season watching you guys. I'm curious if the why for you is those heightened moments. Can you also enjoy the preparation and all of the work that goes into increasing the odds that those heightened moments go your way?
Yes. And so it does give you more discipline for those times leading up to that because you so want to nail it for everybody. So high standards, a lot of skill work, mindset to go. And so if you can just keep pushing to can we go from here to here in our preparation? Can we go from here to here in our execution? I always know going in, man, I really feel prepared. There's always going to be things in any competition that doesn't go right. And early on in my career, I'd always wanted, this has to happen and then this and then this. And I've since learned that's not how competing always works. Sometimes, things happen quickly and you're able to adjust. And now I'm almost waiting for adversity to, something to happen different. And it's never oh, the shoe dropped. It's okay, there it is. That's the one. Now we're ready to go and adjust and, have to game plan this differently or, whatever that might be. So I kind of look for it now as opposed to wanting it always to go one way. Now that when the moments happen, all right, this is the way it's supposed to be. So this is how we're going to go do it.
I just want to hone in on that because that's really interesting. Recently I had a guest, and I can't remember who it was, on the show who was talking about a myth that life will be an escalator, a smooth, unbroken upward trajectory. And instead, the advice was to expect adversity. Yeah. And is that what you're saying here? You've learned to expect and even relish adversity?
I don't know if I relish it, but I definitely expect it. And I think, hey, let's look at it. No one goes through life without any obstacles. So let's give everybody the best tools to when they come that we're able to respond and go handle it in the right way. And so knowing that whether it's in life or a ball game that man, it's coming, there's something that's going to be adversity, and it allows you to kind of show some of that resiliency And that's why we referenced earlier, why is it important to know people? I want to know what caused some of that resilience. Some of that is their why, an upbringing, an event, a moment, doubted, fired, whatever that looked like. Most of the best competitive moments in my life have had to come from when you had to go prove it. And so I love prove it moments, because most of us, you got to stand, put your feet in the ground at some point and say, all right, I'm here to prove it. And I kind of love those moments, to be honest with you.
As you referenced, sometimes prove it moments don't go well. You've had many. You've had many that have gone well and many that haven't. How do you coach your players and staff, and how do you coach yourself when something has gone badly wrong? You could have won, but you didn't, and you've got to pick yourself back up and do the next play or play the next game.
I think the first one you want to frame it is like, what's this here to teach us? Like, what's the lessons we want to take from this? Otherwise, the pain of that loss or the moment really isn't going to go for anything. So it's almost like you want to make that count, not to relive it all the time and go back through it, but to say, when we're in this scenario again, how are we going to handle it differently? So I think if you're with a group or with a team, you talk about it and not just, internalize it and work it out on your own. That's kind of the fun part about being on teams, like it's peer to peer. And we talk about it. What could we have done differently? What would you have thought of? What if we had solved it this way or solved it this way? Okay, let's put that process in. And if when we do get to that spot, we're going to try this. I've always been amazed when somebody, has those moments you hear people say, what would you do differently? And you're like, I wouldn't done a thing differently. And it's like, when you had a loss, like, I've done a lot of things differently. You're like, why would we put ourselves in that spot? So that's how I look at it, to say, all right, this happened, acknowledge it. Sometimes in pro ball, it is the life of the competitor. Like, you'd love to win every game. That's not how it goes. So that's why I felt like I can almost live with the results if the preparation was right, we did the right steps, and we got beat anyway. They kicked a field goal at the end, but the game was right. Like, it sucks, but like, man, being in the fight for those 3 hours, like, there was still joy for me, because that's what makes me happy. When we turn the ball over or don't do the right things, miss a bunch of tackles, okay, why did that happen? What didn't we hit in practice? Those are the games that are hardest, because what did we miss? Where was the blind spot for us? And so that's the ones that you want to look at again and make sure you're finding your own space to say, okay, what's the lesson for us and how do we bounce back from it? A lot of times in a loss, you might say, we're not a bad football team, we just played badly. And so this is how we have to go do the things right. But again, I keep coming back to like standards, Dan, like this is internally how you want to do things. And we try to operate from a standard versus like an expectations. Outside, talking heads, other people, like that's what they expect of the Commanders. What we have are like our own standards. That's way different than what comes from the outside. And I like having standards together, because everybody knows, this is what we want to do. This is how we expect to behave and perform together. And then there's not a lot of like, we should have done this or should have done that. Like, hey man, no, this is what we said we were going to do and how we were going to get down.
Tell me if I'm close to understanding what you're saying. You may laugh at me, since this is like probably a serious football cliche, but in Friday Night Lights, the TV show, the coach always says to the team something like, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
Yep.
But essentially what I take from what the coach said, which I never understood until I heard you say this, is if you're confident that you're at your standards and you've prepared, there is no losing in the largest sense.
Yeah, there's an element of that, but we do keep score.
Right.
But I would say you don't go into the game thinking about losing because of the work that you put in. We showed a picture of the golf course at TPC, like the hole 17. That's the island, that has all this water hazard around it. And so I remember asking the team to say, all right, you're going up to the tee box. Are you bringing one golf ball or two? Like, you're like, one. That's right. So if you're bringing two golf balls, like, you're already doubting.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's all this water. I might hit it in. Like, so the preparation, I think what I took from it, what he was saying, like, whether it was full heart or clear eyes, all of that, like, you've put the work in, you trust that training, now go let it rip. And that's how I think of our guys, to say, put all the work in during the week and we go after it hard to get ourselves ready to play. Then we should be able to have confidence performing, knowing like, hey man, we are ready for this. And that's why those end of the game moments are big for us, because we do them every single day at practice. So they might seem like some things that come up once in a while, but around here, it's every day. So you could have asked anybody on the sideline what we would call in that scenario, and they all would have said the same thing, because they've seen it done, hundreds of times over the last 6 months. So I think preparation helps confidence, but that's really, to me, where the full heart, clear eyes comes from. Like, you did the work to be ready. If you don't, and you kind of get to that starting line and you're not quite sure, like, more often than not, you get your ass kicked.
Yep. Coach, such a pleasure to talk to you today, to watch you and your team operate. It's been a real joy, and big part of my family life now. So I really am grateful to you. I know how busy you are, so thank you for taking some time to get down with us.
And I'm glad we can share this message together, and we'll see you in our first game in Spain. So we'll see you there.
Awesome. All right, Coach. Thank you.
All right. See you guys. Thanks, Dan.